Welcome back to another episode of Reed and Reed's Slater Hall Sports Hour. I'm Reed.
I'm Robert. It was a big win on campus this weekend for the Iowa football team over the rival Iowa State Cyclones. That's what we'll be leading the podcast with today, but if you wish to skip over to a different segment, there will be timestamps in the description.
So Iowa got their second win of the season to begin 2-0 with a 13-3 win over the Iowa State Cyclones.
Yeah, it was a little bit of an ugly game, certainly a Big Ten game. The Iowa defense held Iowa State to a field goal early in the game after they entered the red zone. Iowa State was actually going to go for it from the 1 yard line on fourth down, but there was a false start, so they took their three and didn't get anything the rest of the game. In fact, Mekhi Sargent, Iowa's running back, scored the lone touchdown of the game on a 2-yard run in the fourth quarter. That touchdown finished off a 13-play, 83-yard drive that proved to be the dagger. But the big story from this game was A.J. Epinesa, the reserve defensive lineman. Big stories around Iowa City when he decided to come to Iowa. 5-star recruit, the first under Kirk Ferentz. He was named Big Ten Co-Defensive Player of the Week this week after a 5-tackle, 2-sack, and forced fumble performance. A big start to the season so far, 2 great games. That same cannot be said for Nate Stanley, another average to shaky performance from him. 16-28 passing, 166 yards, no really big plays aside from one deep ball he hit in the fourth quarter. Other than that, there were no deep balls to really be mentioned. Fant was out of bounds on one early in the game in which he was targeted, and he overthrew a couple balls as well.
I think, just like always, Iowa's team is carried by their defense and their running game, and I think that's what this season is going to be, a lot of defense and a lot of running. Obviously, Iowa's had a lot of game manager type quarterbacks, and Stanley looked like last year he wasn't going to be that type. He's going to be a stud, but I mean, even if he doesn't turn out to be the stud that we once thought he was, he's careful with the ball and he takes care of it, and that'll get Iowa wins.
What's common about a great Iowa team? There's been good Iowa teams, good offenses, good Iowa teams with bad offense, but the constant is good Iowa teams play good defense, and it looks like that could be the case again this year.
That's why Big Ten's got the best football in the nation, best conference. They play a pro style of football that just makes it not as fun to watch, but it's real football.
So that's about what we have for the Cyhawk victory for the Iowa Hawkeyes over the Iowa State Cyclones. We now move on to the NFL opening weekend.
So we're just going to recap some of the games that were from this past weekend, and then we'll talk about our picks later in the podcast. So we're just going to start the first game from Atlanta, Philadelphia.
Yeah, Thursday Night Football, first game of the season, and the reigning champion Philadelphia Eagles, they're taking on the Atlanta Falcons. It was really quite similar to the playoff matchup that happened last year between these two teams. The final score was 18-12, Philadelphia winning. And once again, the Falcons come up short in the red zone late in the game. Julio couldn't come down with the pass. Really, for both teams, Matt Ryan and Nick Foles, they looked pretty shaky at the quarterback situation.
And I mean, if you look at it, Atlanta's definitely supposed to be one of the contenders in the NFC this year, and the Eagles took them down without Carson Wentz and without Alshon Jeffrey. So I mean, that's got to be big for the team to win a game of this caliber with your backup quarterback and without your top target.
And if you're Philly, being the underdog in the first game of the season against the team you beat last year in the playoffs, and you're at home, it's just another rallying cry behind this football team. And another thing to note, Keanu Neal and Deion Jones, both injured, expected to be out in an extended period of time, if not the entire season for the Falcons. So that's a big blow on the defense in week 1.
The defense that did perform well, but not looking good if they can't capitalize in the red zone.
Yeah, 2 best players on defense potentially out for the season. Not a great recipe for success. Now we move to a not so eventful or entertaining game. That'd be the Buffalo Bills at the Baltimore Ravens.
Buffalo Bills quarterback combination of Nathan Peterman and then towards the second half, Josh Allen. They combined on the day went 11 for 33 passing with 98 yards, 2 interceptions, 6 sacks, and 0 touchdowns.
On the opposite side of that, Joe Flacco actually looked really sharp. Everyone's saying now that there's some quarterback controversy there. He's really been playing his best football since the Super Bowl run, so we'll see if that continues for Flacco.
Joe Flacco is, in fact, elite. Again.
That's quite a conclusion to go to. Let's see what happens when he plays a team that's not Buffalo.
Next game, we have what was supposed to be probably the best game at noon on Sunday, was the Texans at the Patriots.
Very, very sloppy offense for the Texans. Deshaun Watson fumbled on a handoff the first play of the game. First play for him since coming back from the injury. All around, it was a close game according to the score, but the Patriots just looked like they dominated the whole game.
everyone's hyping on the Deshaun Watson hype train this past year, and I was too, I'm not going to lie, but he looked outmatched. I understand that the Patriots, although they don't have the most talented defense, obviously they have one of the best coaching staffs in football, so they're throwing a lot of new stuff at him, but there were times where he just wasn't making reads, he wasn't making the right decision, he was trying to force stuff, he wasn't letting it come to him. There was time in the second half, the announcer, I believe it was Tony Romo, said they got double coverage over the top, do not try to throw it to Hopkins, and Deshaun Watson tried to throw it 30 yards to Hopkins in the end zone and it went incomplete, so Deshaun Watson still got a ways to go.
Oh, and breaking news, the Brady to Gronk combination was on point this Sunday. Well, that's one of the most sure things in football.
And to note, Riley McCarron muffed a punt, former Hawkeye Riley McCarron, and then he was then cut the next day on Monday.
Yeah, he took accountability for his actions, though. Good to see out of Riley McCarron. Hopefully he gets another shot with a different team.
But with that, Patriots did sign receivers Benny Fowler and Corey Coleman today on Tuesday the 11th.
Just another cast of characters for Brady to throw a bunch of touchdowns, too.
So next game of the day, and probably the most strung out game of the season in week 1, was the Titans at the Dolphins.
Yeah, multiple weather delays, I believe, due to lightning, delayed this game. It really ended up taking forever. Not good for the Titans. Really didn't expect much out of the Dolphins, but they came out with a win in this one, 27-20. Tennessee, not a good debut for Vrabel as the head coach. Mariota missed some time with an injury. Delaney Walker's out for the season. We'll see if they can go up from here.
Ryan Tannehill actually looked he did have 2 interceptions, but he did look fairly decent throughout the game. So we'll see if that's more of that's to come or if that's just a flash in the pan.
Next game on the slate, the what just happened game of the week, the Pittsburgh Steelers at the Cleveland Browns. The Cleveland Browns did not lose. It was, in fact, a tie 21-21.
James Conner was actually excellent in Le'Veon Bell's absence. We'll talk more about James Conner later, but in this road game, Big Ben, his struggles on the road continue. I don't see how people think he's a top 10 quarterback anymore. He's old. He doesn't have the mobility. He doesn't have the durability he used to. His arm's weaker. He does have all the targets, but Steelers' offense is still run reliant on whoever's in the backfield.
Yeah, and big thing, 5 takeaways by the Browns D against the Steelers. Any stat gurus out there, when's the last time a defense got 5 takeaways and that team did not win? That seems like a coaching or an offensive thing. You have to win if you get 5 takeaways against Pittsburgh.
Tyrod Taylor was incredibly inefficient, and if he was even remotely like he was last year, the Browns probably win that game, but he just looked awful for most of the game.
Browns, this applies to the Steelers as well. Browns had so many opportunities to win this game, both in regulation and in overtime. They just couldn't get it done. They do look improved towards last year's team, though. Next game on the slate, the always interesting Cincinnati Bengals at the Indianapolis Colts.
This was a game that a lot of people were looking forward to. Andrew Luck, his first game since 2016 with his newly repaired shoulder, and apparently they felt confident enough in his shoulder to throw 53 passes with him, and he looked fairly decent. He did have some good stats, but 53 passes is a lot, so it shows that he must be pretty healthy, and Joe Mixon finally had his coming out party. He looked like the back the Bengals wanted that they didn't see last year.
Yeah, Luck did have a good game, picked up after a slow start in which he threw an interception. He was driving, giving him a chance to win late in the game, but a fumble derailed those chances. We did see our first ejection of the season and one of the first games of the season, and surprise, surprise, it belonged to a Cincinnati Bengal.
Next game on the slate here, we have the Buccaneers beating the New Orleans Saints 48-40 on the road.
My first note about this game was just wow. Not much more needs to be said. Who expected the Ryan Fitzpatrick-led Tampa Bay Buccaneers to go into New Orleans and put up 48 points on one of the Super Bowl favorites, the New Orleans Saints?
Although the Saints defense looked just so many question marks after a peculiar year last year, how they were good. That's opposite of the Drew Brees era. They went back to their normal defense of looking bad, but wow, that was a Big 12 brand of football there. A lot of scoring without any defense.
They must have taken the bounties off after last year.
Next game on the slate, we have 49ers lost to the Minnesota Vikings 24-16.
Jimmy Garoppolo's first loss as a starter in his NFL career. It was a sloppy game all around for the 49ers. It showed some of the losses they've missed. Jerick McKinnon's out. Marquise Goodwin missed most of the game with a thigh contusion, I believe. It's just some of the people that the 49ers put around Jimmy Garoppolo didn't show up, and it showed.
There's an article that was just put out talking about how Jimmy Garoppolo's, quote, bargain bin weapons are holding him down, and the 49ers are going to regret not giving him some legit options. And I disagree with that. They made up the moves. They signed McKinnon. They couldn't control his ACL tearing. They have Goodwin, and they couldn't control him getting hurt. I just think it's you got to chalk that up to probably the best or second best defense in football here. So
yeah, on the opposite side, the Vikings looked phenomenal. There was a little bit of shakiness there with the run game, still some offensive line adjustments that are happening there. But as previously mentioned, the defense is phenomenal at all three levels, not really a weakness there. Kirk Cousins had some beautiful throws, really looks in sync with his wide receivers, and Dalvin Cook's back from his injury, so it should be a big year for the Vikings.
Speaking of good defenses, the next game is the Jaguars beat the New York Giants 20-15, a very unusual football score.
Yeah, unusual score. Part of that's New York went for a 2-point conversion after they scored and did not get it. Big story of this game, Leonard Fournette left with an injury, but good thing for the Jaguars, TJ Yeldon filled in nicely. He really didn't miss a beat on offense. He has proven to be a better receiving threat for Jacksonville when Fournette is not in, so we'll see how the playing time goes there going forward.
I think we've just seen that Fournette's physical style of running is really tough to stay healthy just because his big bruising style, it doesn't seem like running backs like that can stay healthy for a long time. But I think people are overlooking Saquon Barkley did not look very good. He broke off an incredible 60-plus yard touchdown. I'm not going to lie, that was a very impressive run, but if you take out that, he had 15 carries for 40 yards. So nothing about him other than that one carry was really awe-inspiring.
Yeah, it was really a 3 yards in a cloud of dust performance from Barkley, but I mean, you have Eric Flowers blocking for you against the Jacksonville Jaguars Saxonville defense, so I'm not really sure what you're supposed to do. And then a big story from this game, the Odell Beckham Jr. versus Jalen Ramsey matchup. Beckham had a pretty nice game, 11 catches, 111 yards, no touchdowns though, and that proved to be the winner for Jacksonville. And the next game on the slate, the Kansas City Chiefs at the Los Angeles Chargers.
Chiefs ended up winning this game 38-28, but let me tell you, they probably shouldn't have won. In the first half, the Chargers shot themselves in the foot with 4 drops from their receivers. 2 of them were touchdowns. One of them, they had a lot of open space. So as good as Pat Mahomes looked, Tyreek Hill's the most dynamic player in football. Hunt and Kelsey were not factors at all in the offense. So that's something that could change, but the Chargers are better than they looked on Sunday.
Yeah, and quite a start to the season for Tyreek Hill. Scored on a punt return touchdown first time he touched the ball. Had multiple long plays throughout the game. The speed of the Chiefs really showed, and maybe except on the Anthony Sherman touchdown reception, but fast for a fullback, and that's a fullback talking to you.
Don't disrespect Anthony Sherman.
Hey,
he is the heart and soul of this team, along with Eric Berry.
I love fullbacks probably more than the next
guy.
guy.
He's not just a fullback.
I'm just saying, when I was making a speed point, I was transitioning to
the heart
Anthony Sherman
and soul of the team.
Point taken.
Next game, the Dallas Cowboys lost to the Panthers 16-8 in what turned out to be a very ugly game on both sides.
Yeah, very ugly game. Not efficient games from either quarterback, Dak or Cam. The defenses really showed up for this game. Running games were bottled up for most of the game as well. Both teams were coming into the year thinking they were going to make some changes to the offense. Neither of them really showed up in this game.
Yeah, Cowboys offense just looked lost. Cowboys had one drive where Zeke ended up scoring, but that offense looks lost without Dez and Witt. I know people were saying they ended up not even being assets just because of the point in their careers that they were, but they look like Dak had just nobody to throw to. Next game, the Redskins beat the Cardinals 24-6 in Alex Smith's Washington Redskin debut.
Yeah, and it was Sam Bradford's Arizona Cardinal debut, and it was a pretty dominant performance from the Washington Redskins. Big story from this game, well, aside from a very efficient game from Alex Smith, but what else do you expect from Alex Smith? Adrian Peterson and Chris Thompson form a very nice running back combo. You got thunder and lightning a little bit, so to speak, and it's a dangerous offense for sure.
Cardinals are always, since the Carson Palmer days, they look like they're almost there. They have talented players. They have Chandler Jones. They have Patrick Peterson. They have David Johnson. They have Larry Fitzgerald. But it just seems like they can never put the pieces together. And Bradford was okay, but if they're not in contention this year, it's not going to be long before Josh Rosen's starting.
Yeah, and is it too much to ask to see Larry Fitzgerald in the playoffs again, just one more time before he retires and heads to Canton? And the next game, the surprising, at least a little bit for me, game about the Seattle Seahawks and the Denver Broncos. Denver ended up winning 27-24.
Seahawks defense was as expected. They did have 3 interceptions on Case Keenum, but they're definitely not the Legion of Boom anymore, I can tell you that.
Yeah, and Case Keenum's debut had 3 touchdowns. He got the win. That's all you can really ask for from him. Emmanuel Sanders proved to be his favorite target. We'll see if that continues throughout the season. I sure hope so. He's on my fantasy team.
Now, I don't really want to bring this up, but the Chicago Bears did end up blowing a late second half lead to the Packers and losing 24-23. Do you want to comment on this, or do you want me to take the lead?
I don't want to talk about it, but I also don't want to hear what you have to say on it. So I'll take the lead here. So Packers ended up winning 24-23. The Bears had a 20-0 lead early in the third quarter. It was a good start to the night for the Bears as a whole. Aaron Rodgers, that's not to say it's a positive for the Bears, even though it kind of is. He left the game with an injury. He was carted off. Trubisky looked good on the first drive. Defense was putting pressure on the quarterback, especially when Deshaun Kaiser was in. Kaiser was just getting bullied by Khalil Mack specifically. Sack, fumble, pick six. The works was getting put on Deshaun Kaiser. Then the second half happened. Aaron Rodgers came back in, did Aaron Rodgers things, torched the Bears defense as he has for the entirety of his career, and came away with a Sunday Night Football victory.
273 yards and 3 touchdown passes in the second half alone for Aaron Rodgers. And as a Chiefs fan, I'm used to collapses, and I can tell you that's not a fun game to watch as a Bears fan.
No kidding.
The first Monday night game was the New York Jets at the Detroit Lions in what was almost a shocker of a game.
Yeah, it was certainly one of the most stunning games from Week 1. The New York Jets came in and won 48-17. First career start for Sam Darnold for the Jets. He threw a pick six on his first throw. It looked ugly, but from there it was a great performance from Darnold, and he looks like he could lead the Jets offense going forward.
Darnold went 16 for 21 in that game, so if you take out the interception, he only had 4 incompletions, and that's definitely an encouraging sign for a quarterback as young as he is.
Not an encouraging sign. The Lions offense. Stafford threw 4 interceptions as a whole. The team had 5 interceptions. The Lions offense just looked lost.
You have to honor Matt Castle. He's one of the greatest backup quarterbacks in history.
Okay, Matt Castle threw an interception too and was
Yes.
part of the lost offense. Not
Yes.
a good debut at all. Matt Patricia, which was sort of a theme for rookie head coaches this year.
And the last Monday night game of the week was the Los Angeles Rams at the Oakland Raiders.
And John Gruden's return to the sideline was spoiled as the Rams came away with a victory 33-13. There was an early touchdown drive that was finished for the Raiders that was finished off by a beast mode Marshawn Lynch touchdown run. And then from there, they just couldn't really get anything going offensively. And after a slow start, the new Los Angeles Rams defense looked very, very good.
If you include punter and kicker, they have the best roster. And I'm just kidding. Colin Cowherd always says that. If you ever listen to anything he does when he talks about the Rams, every single time he mentions the punter and the kicker, and that means they have the best roster in football.
I mean, I love Greg the Leg as much as the next guy, but he did miss a field goal on the infield dirt last night.
The Rams dominated as expected. Their offense looked good. Gurley looked good. Rams are going to be tough this year, I can tell you that. And we'll get to more on that later in our NFL Power Rankings.
So that's about it that is it for the first games of Week 1 of the NFL season. So now we move on to our segments. We'll start off with Performance of the Week. We actually had a consensus Performance of the Week that we'll share with you first, and then we'll go into some different ones. So first off, consensus Performance of the Week, Ryan Fitzpatrick, quarterback of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. He had 417 passing yards, 5 total touchdowns, 4 through the air, 1 on the ground, and just smoked the New Orleans Saints defense.
Again, like I said earlier, it was a Saints defense that took huge strides last year, and if I could have picked one game to be a lock for one team this week, I would have picked the Saints. And the Saints defense looked bad, and Fitzmagic looked good.
Yeah, Fitzmagic just happened.
He might be a franchise quarterback.
Yeah, ask the Jets a couple of years ago.
My personal performance of the week, it may not seem like a big deal, but Michael Thomas had 16 catches for 180 yards and a touchdown. 16 catches has not happened in the NFL since 2015. Antonio Brown also had 16. It's almost crazy that he doesn't get more attention for what he's done in the past 2 years. I mean, he's been Drew Brees' top target, 1,000 yards every year. He just makes plays in an offense that is high caliber as any unit in the NFL.
My performance of the week, and it kind of pains me to say this, but Aaron Rodgers coming back in the second half and picking apart the Bears' defense. They couldn't get pressure on him. They couldn't confuse him with coverage. Total in the game, he had 286 passing yards and 3 touchdowns, despite missing a chunk of the game and, for the most part, playing on one leg. The mobility really wasn't there, but that didn't stop him from beating the Chicago Bears once again.
I mean, it's almost amazing to think that Aaron Rodgers' best asset is his ability to scramble and make throws on the run. and you take that away, and he still torched one of the top-tier defense in football. That's crazy to think, for sure.
Now, our stats of the week.
My stat of the week, if I asked you here, my co-host, what running back do you think faced the most 8-man boxes on Sunday?
On Sunday,
Or Monday. But it's not anybody on Monday.
See, if I was going to guess, even though you said it's not Monday, I was going to say someone like Marshawn Lynch, maybe.
Royce Freeman faced an 8-man box, an 8-plus man box on 66.7% of his carries. That is, for someone who's just coming in the NFL, that is crazy to think he's getting that much attention. Whether it's him or just the game plan to make Case Keenum beat them instead of on the ground. But wow, and he still had 71 yards on the ground rushing.
Okay, my stat of the week deals with one of the bigger stories in football the past couple weeks. The Raiders recorded an NFL low 5 QB pressures in Week 1 versus the Rams. They achieved 5 or fewer pressures just once in Khalil Mack's 64 career games with the club. That stat according to Pro Football Focus. The Raiders under John Gruden, besides Bruce Irvin, they're really missing out on a pass rusher, and it showed against the Rams, and it'll continue to show the rest of the season. And side note, we had a consensus stat of the week that we both shied away from so we could share our personal stats. The Cleveland Browns started 0-1, and yes, they had a tie, and that was the best start to a season for them since 2004.
They've not won an opener since 2004. That's just crazy to think, with all the parity in the NFL, that they have not won an opener in 15 years.
And they didn't even win this one. They tied, and here we go. Great start for the Browns.
They didn't lose. That's all that matters. Now we're going to go to a new segment we haven't done yet, the underrated performance of the week. Someone that performed well, and they just aren't getting the attention that they should.
Yeah, I'll go first. I mentioned him a little bit earlier. Chris Thompson, running back with the Washington Redskins, splits time with Adrian Peterson. He had 11 touches on offense this week, total 128 yards and 1 touchdown. For a running back that's splitting reps, gets a limited number of touches, he certainly does the most with his opportunities, and it showed on Sunday.
My underrated performance of the week, I had T.J. Watt, the outside linebacker for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Everyone's focused on his brother J.J.'s return from his injury, the Browns not losing this game, and Le'Veon Bell not playing. But in all that, T.J. Watt recorded 4 sacks, 11 total tackles, and a blocked kick. Well, one of the few bright spots on what's a pretty bad Steelers defense.
Yeah, probably the only bright spot, because they tied with the Browns in the opener. Not much else needs to be said there. Now, going into our surprise of the week, mine was pretty obvious from the moment I saw the score. My surprise of the week was the Tampa Bay Buccaneers going into New Orleans and beating the Saints. We've spoken to that a little bit already. Offensive show for the Buccaneers. Fitzmagic to Mike Evans and Deshaun Jackson, who still looks remarkably fast on turf, no matter how old he gets. And they took down a huge Super Bowl favorite, so what else needs to be said there?
I have a little bit deeper surprise of the week here. Just as I talked about Royce Freeman, my surprise of the week is other running back in Denver, Philip Lindsay, also had 15 carries, also for 71 yards, the same number of carries and yards as Royce Freeman. But he also had 102 total yards, so that means he had 31 receiving yards too and a touchdown. So going into the year, everyone thought Royce Freeman was a sleeper to have a good year, and maybe him and Devontae Booker would start the year splitting carries, but Philip Lindsay comes out of nowhere and almost puts on a clinic at how to play running back. So I think that was definitely a surprise to see. My other surprise, we're going to get our baseball in. The rally squirrel is back in St. Louis. A squirrel ran across the field during the Cardinals game at the Detroit Tigers, and the Cardinals scored 5 runs in that inning. I'm just saying the rally squirrel is back. Be scared, MLB.
Okay, we'll see if we can edit that last part out. If it makes it to you, the viewing audience, I apologize. Moving on, we just finished with Surprise of the Week. Our Clown of the Week. My Clown of the Week, and I guess you could have said this for most weeks last year or the year before, Hugh Jackson. Now, here we go. He had a miscommunication with Todd Haley, and that was his reasoning for why Josh Gordon was starting the game, even though he said throughout the week, Josh Gordon will not be starting, he won't be playing that much. But then again, he was out there on the first play. He said it was a miscommunication with the formation and the play that was going to be called, and he was surprised when he saw Josh Gordon out there. How did you not go over the first play of the season in your first game, first offensive play, and be like, oh, I'm surprised to see just Josh Gordon out there? That's just poor everything on Hugh Jackson. You got to have control of your players. I think Todd Haley just put him in because he knew he's Josh Gordon. But have some accountability and prove to the Cleveland fans and just the rest of the NFL that you deserve to be an NFL head coach.
He tied the first game. He doesn't have to jump in Lake Erie again, so that is the positive. I unfortunately did not collaborate with you. I just had the Browns as a whole. That is just like that. There are just some things that just make sense. That is just a 100% classic Cleveland Browns move, breaking a winless streak or breaking a losing streak with a tie, and it now becomes a winless streak.
Yeah, I think moving forward for Clown of the Week, we'll try to get you as few Buffalo Bills or Cleveland Browns as possible.
It's going to be tough because it's just every week it just applies to them, but we will do our best.
It's just so easy. And sorry to the audience, but for our next segment, worst headline of the week, the Cleveland Browns are also involved. The headline reads, Browns are NFL's biggest winners even in a tie. I just know they're not the biggest winners. They blew. If they actually won the game and didn't blow the numerous opportunities that they had to win and start a season off not losing, maybe they're the biggest winners. Oh, actually, they are the biggest winners if they can accomplish that. But they didn't. They blew it. They showed that they're still Cleveland. They still have some of the problems that carried them to 0-16 last year. And if they actually win a game, sure, but they did not.
Mine's not as much as a headline as it just is an article. Max Kellerman was on First Take yelling and screaming about how the Giants should have taken Sam Darnold over Saquon Barkley, and he's been on this for a while, but he thinks that yesterday's Jets game proved his point. Yes, Darnold looked good. Yes, he went 16 for 21, had 2 touchdowns, but it's been one game. It's you can't judge a player off of one game. Sam Darnold could go throw 4 picks next game, and he will be silent. You can't judge rookies off one game, and Saquon still had his flashes. There's no reason that people need to overreact to it. It's just like saying after the preseason someone's a bust. What are you talking about? You can't judge them yet. So Max Kellerman yelling about Saquon and Darnold again.
Wait, someone was yelling on First Take. Is that a usual occurrence?
It's quite unusual actually since Skip Bayless left.
Yeah, I don't watch that show. Okay. Our final sort of segment of the week, debate of the week. And on the slate for the debate this week is, should the Pittsburgh Steelers trade star running back and impending free agent Le'Veon Bell? I'll go first. I'm taking the no side of this. I do not think they should trade Bell. You may be thinking, oh, James Conner had a good performance in week 1 against the Cleveland Browns. I mean, the Browns. But you had a solid performance. But no, I really don't think you need to trade Le'Veon Bell just because of one game from James Conner. You are in your prime, let's win a Super Bowl while Ben is still around, while Antonio Brown is still the top receiver in football, and while you still have rights to Le'Veon Bell. So whether he reports this week, the next week, week 8, whatever, when he reports, you'll have one of the most talented players in football on your team, and you'll have him there to go down on the stretch run and try to beat the Patriots or the Jaguars or whoever in the playoffs and try to win another Super Bowl for the franchise.
I, on the contrary, actually do believe the Steelers would benefit from trading Le'Veon Bell. Yes, you can call it James Conner's performance a flash in the pan, but the important part is that I don't think they'll trade him right now. They should trade him in a few weeks, make sure James Conner's the real deal. But to go along with that, if James Conner continues to perform, you know Le'Veon's showing up because he doesn't want to get traded. He wants to get his money from the Steelers because he knows they can win. But the problem is, Big Ben's not winning you a Super Bowl anymore. Regardless of how weak the AFC is outside of the Patriots, Big Ben's not going to win you a Super Bowl anymore. James Conner's still on his rookie deal. It'll be millions and millions of dollars cheaper than signing Le'Veon Bell. And yes, it was against the Browns, but they do have a legitimate defense. And James Conner did everything Le'Veon Bell does in his same workload. So he proved he can handle it. And Le'Veon Bell's attitude is just, it's cancer in the locker room. His own linemen are ripping him. Obviously, they're fed up with him and his diva attitude. I just think it'd be good for the Steelers to get, not only could they get picks, but then they could save the money from not signing him. So I think it would make a lot of sense for them to get rid of him in the next few weeks.
Okay, a couple things. We said the same thing, or at least most people said the same thing about Roethlisberger after his performance against Jacksonville last year, and then he bounced back and had a very good rest of the season. Let's see if that happens. It was the season opener. It was a sloppy game. We'll see if he goes back to his usual Roethlisberger self.
His Roethlisberger self can't perform on the road, and he still throws a lot of picks. He's not mobile. He's not durable. doesn't have the same arm.
He's just a future Hall of
just
Fame
like
quarterback.
he is a future Hall of Fame quarterback who's
still
also 35 plus.
We've seen a lot of quarterbacks where that doesn't even matter anymore.
Okay, Tom Brady's not everybody is the bionic human of Tom Brady. Everyone's seen his combine picture. He's a specimen.
And then, as far as a trade partner goes for Le'Veon Bell, you need the absolute perfect trade partner. It's not as easy trading Le'Veon Bell as it would be trading Khalil Mack or someone like that. For Le'Veon Bell, you need the perfect trade partner, as I mentioned, someone who's taking an aging running back who's had a lot of touches, who's due for probably the biggest contract for a running back ever.
I don't really think 26... Yes, 26 is older for a running back, but that's not aging. He's got 4 good years left until he's hit the wall of 30.
I'm just saying, as far as NFL position goes, running backs hit the fan the soonest.
Plenty of teams, though, would love to have Le'Veon Bell on their roster. So
yeah, and they'll do that in free agency next year, not trading for him on a project
team
where he could
that is
leave.
Ready to win, that needs a running back, will pay that price for him.
What, so you think like the 49ers would pay a big price for him?
I mean, even if they do pay a price for him and they win a Super Bowl this year and get Jerick McKinnon back next year or sign Le'Veon, Jerick McKinnon and Le'Veon will be a fine 1-2 punch.
Well, yeah, that's wishful thinking for the most part. But I'm just saying, I think most teams who want Le'Veon Bell on their team are willing to wait till next year in free agency.
Now we'll move into our power rankings section of the NFL. We're going to start at 5 and go to 1.
So up first, my 5th team in the power rankings, the Jacksonville Jaguars. The defense is just so good. It might be even better than last year, and that's saying something. The linebackers are young and athletic and quick. The defensive line is dominant. The back end of the defense, best cornerback tandem in the league. They make up for some weak offense led by Blake Bortles, who's at least not a laughingstock anymore, but they're still a top 5 team in football for sure.
My number 5 team, I actually have the Atlanta Falcons. Yes, they did lose, but it's very, very hard to play in Philadelphia. I'm not saying yes, Sarkisian did not look great again calling plays, but the talent's there. Defense will suffer with the 2 injuries, but I still think that they're going to be a top 5 team this year.
My number 4, the defending world champion Philadelphia Eagles. Now, don't freak out. They could easily reclaim the top spot once they get the quarterback situation figured out. But right now, they have a great defense. They have some weapons around whoever the quarterback is, Nick Foles or Carson Wentz. And like I said, if they get Wentz back and he's back to how he was last year, they could easily retake the number 1 spot. But for now, the number 4.
My number 4 team, I have the New England Patriots. But both of our top 4s are very fluid. We knew who was going to be in our top 4. It was a matter of putting them in order. And obviously, everything's been said. They have Tom Brady. They have the best coaching staff in football. The weapons around him aren't great, but Tom Brady does what Tom Brady does with whoever is out there. So, Patriots are going to find a lot of success in a weak AFC this year.
Yep, number 3, I have the New England Patriots, just a notch above you. Yeah, a lot of the same things you said. This is largely in part, well, all in part to Bill Belichick and Tom Brady still leading the organization. Brady to Gronk is never going to get old. Well, maybe if you're a Jets fan.
Unless Gronk retires.
Yeah, we'll see. The WWE job is just waiting for him. But, yeah, there's a lot of mid-tier weapons around Brady aside from Gronk, but I think he's still going to take advantage of all of them and lead them to another division title and potentially a conference title this year.
My number 3 team, I have the Minnesota Vikings. Boy, did they look good. That defense is stout. Case Keenum's not behind the helm anymore. They have Kirk Cousins, and they have all the weapons at receiver. Dalvin Cook's back. Offensive line isn't great, but everything other than that, they are probably the second most well-rounded team in football.
Yeah, and again, one higher than you at number 2. I have the Minnesota Vikings. A lot of the points you mentioned again. You got Kirk Cousins, who had a nice debut with the Vikings. Weapons around him. Offensive line is a little shaky, as I mentioned before, but they'll get that fixed as the season moves along. And then the defense, they in Jacksonville and Philly kind of move back and forth between best defense in football. But right now, Minnesota's something to watch out for.
My number 2 team, I have the Philadelphia Eagles. Not only did they beat the Atlanta Falcons, who are a top-tier team in the NFL, but they did it with Nick Foles and without Alshon Jeffrey. So I think not only are they 2 now, but I still could see them moving up to 1 once they get Wentz and Jeffrey back. And it's crazy the talent on this team.
My number 1 team in my power rankings after week 1, the Los Angeles Rams, the team of the offseason. Their new acquisition looked sharp in week 1. The defense, there's some unproven linebackers, but a solid D-line and a solid secondary, and they seem to be gelling fine so far. Goff, not the best performance out of him, but they still got the job done against the Raiders. You got Gurley, Cooks, whole cast of weapons there, and it's in line to be a very good year for the Los Angeles Rams.
Also, the Rams at 1. I don't really need to say much. Everything was explained there. Very good team.
Watch out, NFC.
Yes.
Now we move to our week 2 picks. We had different levels of success last week. I went 9-7 in my opening week of NFL picks.
I went 7-9, and I'm not worried though. Don't worry.
Oh, good. You're not worried.
Yes.
Good to hear.
I'm very confident.
We're still working on our punishment for the loser of the picks, but we'll get to that to you shortly.
If you have any ideas, let us know down in the comments or on our Twitter.
Yeah, so Savon, let us know. So, first game of the week, Thursday Night Football, the Baltimore Ravens at the Cincinnati Bengals.
I have the Ravens winning this game, and the Ravens defense is going to stifle the Red Rifle.
Yeah,
I didn't even plan that, but that rhymed so well.
That was great. I'm going to get that on a t-shirt. I also have the Ravens. It's not going to be as ugly as them against Buffalo, but the Ravens defense is still going to show up and shut down the Cincinnati Bengals. Next up on the slate, Carolina Panthers at Atlanta Falcons.
I have the Falcons winning. I mean, I think I'm still higher on the Falcons than other people, but Carolina's got a great front seven, great defense. Cam's just too inefficient. I think the Falcons are going to take this one.
Yeah, I also have the Falcons. I think it'll be a bounce-back week as far as Atlanta's offense goes. They're missing a couple of key defensive pieces, but I think it'll still be enough to beat the Carolina Panthers this week. Game number 3, Indianapolis Colts at Washington Redskins.
I have the Washington Redskins winning their home opener this week. I think Alex Smith's going to have another good week against this Colts defense.
Yep, I also have the Washington Redskins. Andrew Luck can't do things by himself, as we've seen for pretty much the entirety of his career. Good opener for the Redskins, and I think they'll carry that into a win in Week 2. Next game up, Houston Texans at Tennessee Titans.
I was originally going to pick the Titans, and then I remembered how inefficient the offense looked, and I had to go the Texans. Yes, Watson didn't look very good, but I think the Texans will have enough to take this one.
Yep, I also have the Texans. I think they're just going to be playing a little bit angrier this week. Things did not go how I imagined they wanted them to go in Week 1 against the Patriots, and they're going to come out and show what they've got talent-wise this week. Moving on, Philadelphia Eagles at Fitzmagic and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Fitzmagic no longer. Eagles will stifle Fitzmagic, and the magic will be over.
Yeah, Eagles are moving on to 2-0. If the Buccaneers win this, I'll have them as my surprise of the week again because I do not expect it at all. Philadelphia is going to win this game. Next game on the slate, the Kansas City Chiefs traveling to Pittsburgh to face the Steelers.
If Chiefs were at home, I'd pick the Chiefs, but in Pittsburgh at Heinz Field, I'm taking the Steelers here.
Yeah, I usually would find myself taking the Steelers. I'm picking Kansas City in this game. Let's just see if the speed can get by the Pittsburgh defense as well, and if the Steelers continue to commit turnovers and make a bunch of mistakes as a team.
As much as I hate to say it, Antonio Brown's just going to have he always has a field day against the Chiefs, and with no formidable cornerback to cover him, it's going to be a long day, I think, on defense for the Chiefs.
Next game up, the Miami Dolphins at the New York Jets. Jets.
I'm going with those boys, the Jets. I think they're going to have another good defensive performance and take the win here.
Yeah, I'm jumping on that Jets train, which is a weird thing to say, Jets train. But yeah, I'm jumping with the Jets. I think I'm getting on the Darnold bandwagon right now. I think it's going to be another good game for him against the Dolphins. Next game up, the Los Angeles Chargers looking to rebound at the Buffalo Bills.
Not the Bills. I'm taking the Chargers.
I second that motion. Chargers win. That's all that really needs to be said about that game. Marquee matchup of the weekend, the Minnesota Vikings at the Green Bay Packers.
I am going to take the Vikings. Aaron Rodgers says he's going to play, and I'm sure he will, but if he's not 100%, even if he is, this defense is going to have a lot of trouble stopping the Vikings offense, so I'm taking the Vikings in this game.
I couldn't find myself picking against Aaron Rodgers at home 2 weeks in a row, so I'm going to say the Packers win this game. Next up on the slate, the still undefeated Cleveland Browns at the New Orleans Saints.
I have the Saints. Again, I wanted to pick the Browns, but I have the Saints.
Yeah, I also have the Saints. I don't have another lower tier team coming into New Orleans and beating Drew Brees, so yeah, Saints going to win this game.
And by the way, when we counted our wins and losses from last week, we just counted both of us counted the Steelers game as a loss because we didn't get the game right, which obviously we couldn't predict a tie. So
yeah, I mean, we weren't picking the Browns in week 1, then it's our fault for that. Next game on the list, the Detroit Lions at the San Francisco 49ers.
I have the 49ers win this game. The Lions just looked bad, and I don't think that's going to change against a pretty good 49ers defense.
Yeah, I think the 49ers win the home opener. We'll see if the Stafford turnovers continue, how his health is affected in this game from last week. But, yeah, Jimmy G gets back on track. Hopefully the supporting cast does as well. Next up, the Arizona Cardinals at the Los Angeles Rams.
I have the Rams taking this one. I wanted to pick the Cardinals, but after how they looked last week, I got to go with the Rams again.
Yeah, I'm picking the Rams as well. Just so much talent on that roster, and I think it's going to be a 2-0 start for the Rams. Next up, the New England Patriots at the Jacksonville Jaguars in a rematch of the AFC Championship game last year.
I learned my lesson, and I will be taking the Patriots in this game because Blake Bortles is not greater than Tom Brady.
Yeah, I'm picking the Patriots. It's a good defense for the Jaguars, but that offense just can't keep up. Next game, the Raiders. Nah, they're just the Raiders now. They can't have that cool name. The Oakland Raiders traveling to Denver to take on the Broncos.
I have the Broncos. Derek Carr didn't look great, so I have the Broncos defense taking over and Broncos taking this one.
Yeah, Gruden falls to 0-2 this year. I think he's going to lose to the Broncos. Keenan will have another good game. Von Miller and Bradley Chubb going to get to the passer. Broncos win this game. Now the Sunday night football matchup of the week, which it seems to be every year, sometimes twice a year, the New York Giants at the Dallas Cowboys.
I have the Giants taking this game. Giants defense isn't great, but Dak is less great, so I'm taking the Giants here.
I actually have the Cowboys winning this game. We'll see if the Cowboys defense can shut down Barkley and Beckham. That's really all they need to worry about. But I think Ezekiel Elliott gets going this game and Cowboys will win.
They have Sterling Shepard. They have Evan Ingram. They have more targets. That's the problem with the Giants offense. The problem is you can't spell elite without Eli.
Cowboys win this game. Our final game of the week, the Monday Night Football matchup, the Seattle Seahawks at the Chicago Bears.
I have the Bears winning this one. I just don't think the Seahawks are... It's sad because I enjoyed the Seahawks run, but I just don't think the Seahawks are going to be any good anymore. I have the Bears taking this one.
Yeah, I expect the Bears to bounce back from the meltdown that happened in Week 1, so I'm picking the Bears in Week 2. Doug Baldwin's out for an extended period of time for the Seahawks. Russell Wilson doesn't have anyone to really throw to except an aging Brandon Marshall, who I forgot was on the roster. But, yeah, Bears win Week 2.
And contrary to last week, we actually had very similar picks this week, because last week we had a lot of differences, but this week we are pretty similar.
Yeah, so Reed's hoping things get better pick-wise. I'm hoping it just improves a little bit for my 9-7 record. He went 7-9, pulled the old Jeff Fisher trick.
You only hope to improve a little bit? Don't you want to get every game right? Are you even trying?
Things are going to improve gradually before. You can't move a mountain in one day.
When it comes to NFL picks, you can.
Yeah, sort of true.
And that is the wrap-up of our episode here. If you want to follow us on Twitter, I will link that down in the description, and check us out.
Yeah, been a fun podcast again this week. I'm Robert.
And I'm Reed, and we will see you next week.